Hey, look, we are in a different place today. How different is this? Because you know what this is? This is the premiere of, drumroll please, the Storytimemobile. We are in the Storytimemobile right now. Why are we in the Storytimemobile? Great question. Do you think it's because our regular Storytime place is taken by someone else who needs to use it? That's completely possible. Do you think it's because we like being in the Storytimemobile? That's definitely right. Hello, live from the Storytimemobile. I am your host, Uncle Scotty, for Storytime with Uncle Scotty. We have our own mugs. There's our very sturdy desk here, very precarious with a mug full of water. I actually was just out mailing, sending, shipping some mugs to some people. I have my mask here so I could do it safely, 6 feet apart from everyone. So I was just out, and while I was out, I thought, wow, why don't I read some stories from the Storytimemobile? So, as you can recall, we've been reading Pippi Longstocking. And Pippi Longstocking is a very, 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 very special little girl, special young woman. She lives all by herself. She does whatever she wants throughout the day, and we found that she does some beautiful things. She's a great baker, knows how to make wonderful pancakes, knows how to make delicious cookies. She's a thing finder, and she protects vulnerable people that she knows because she's very strong, and she doesn't take any bad energy. That's good. I think we have a lot to learn about Pippi, and I want to get into it, but before, I have some announcements to make. I have one announcement to make, and that is a thank you, a big thank you, once again, to one of our very important supporters, Isla. Isla out there in the Pacific Northwest, I believe in the beautiful city of Seattle. Unless Isla's out there traveling around, she sometimes goes and adventures off herself sometimes. So, Isla, thank you so much for watching. It means the world. I hope you're enjoying your mug. And your bookmarkus. Okay, bookmarkus. Okay, let's get to it, shall we? We are in chapter 3. Chapter 3. Pippi plays. Chapter 3. Pippi plays tag with some policemen. It soon became known throughout the little town that a 9-year-old girl was living all by herself in Villa Villekulla. And all the ladies and gentlemen in the town thought this would never do. All children must have someone to advise them, and all children must go to school to learn the multiplication tables. I love the multiplication tables. I was just talking to some other friends of mine, Lo, Grant, Clara, about what their favorite multiplication problem was. A lot of people like 6 times 6 is 36. They said 1 times 1 is 1, which is a very crafty answer. What's yours? Don't know what mine is. I always liked 6 times 4 is 24. Something about it was just nice. Anyway, all children must have someone to advise them, and the children must go to school to learn the multiplication tables. So the ladies and gentlemen decided that the little girl in Villa Villekulla must immediately be placed in a children's home. One lovely afternoon, Pippi had invited Tommy and Annika over for afternoon coffee and pepperkakor, which we learned were like Swedish cookies, like little ginger snaps, ginger cookies, pepperkakor. She had spread the party out on the front steps. It was so sunny and beautiful there, and the air was filled with the fragrance and the flowers in Pippi's garden. Mr. Nelson, the monkey, climbed around on the porch railing, and every now and then the horse stuck his head out so that he'd be invited to have a cookie. Smart horse. "Oh, isn't it glorious to be alive?" said Pippi, stretching out her legs as far as she could reach. Just at that moment, 2 police officers in full uniform came in the gate. "Hooray!" said Pippi. "This must be my lucky day, too. Policemen are the very best things I know, next to rhubarb pudding." I've never had rhubarb pudding. I'm going to trust that it's delicious. But I don't often associate rhubarbs with pudding. That Pippi. And with her face beaming, she went to meet them. "Is this the little girl who has moved into Villa Villekulla?" asked one of the policemen. "Quite the contrary," said Pippi. "This is a tiny little auntie who lives on the 3rd floor at the other end of the town." She said that only because she wanted to have a little fun with the policemen, but they didn't think that it was funny at all. They said she shouldn't be such a smarty. And they went on to tell her that some nice people in the town were arranging for her to get into a children's home. "I already have a place in a children's home," said Pippi. What? Said one of the policemen. Has it been arranged already then? What children's home? This one, Pippi said haughtily. I am a child and this is my home. Therefore, it is a children's home. And I have enough room here, plenty of room. Dear child, said the policeman smiling, you don't understand. You must get into a real children's home and have someone look after you. Is one allowed to bring horses to your children's home? Asked Pippi. No, of course not, said the policeman. That's what I thought, said Pippi sadly. Well, what about monkeys? Of course not. You ought to realize that. Well then, said Pippi, you'll have to get kids for your children's home somewhere else. I certainly don't intend to move there. But don't you understand that you must go to school? Why? To learn things, of course. What sort of things? Asked Pippi. All sorts, said the policeman. Lots of useful things. The multiplication tables, for instance. I've got along fine without any plutification tables for 9 years, said Pippi. And I guess I'll get along without it from now on, too. Yes, but just how embarrassing will it be for you to be so ignorant? Imagine when you grow up and somebody asks you what the capital of Portugal is and you can't answer. Oh, I can answer all right, said Pippi. I'll answer it like this. If you are so bound and determined to find out what the capital of If you are so determined and bound out to... If you are so bound and determined to find out what the capital of Portugal is, then, for goodness sakes, write directly to Portugal and ask. Yes, but don't you think that you would be sorry to not know yourself? Oh, probably, said Pippi. No doubt I should lie awake nights and wonder, what in the world is the capital of Portugal? But one can't be having fun all the time, she continued, bending over and standing on her hands for a change. For that matter, I've been in Lisbon with my papa, she added, still standing upside down, for she could talk that way too, upside down. Now, I don't know if it's going to tell us, but Lisbon is the capital of Portugal. So the problem that the policeman tried to give her, Pippi already knew because she had been there. She didn't have to go to school to figure it out. She learned in the school of life. But then one of the policemen said that Pippi certainly didn't need to think she could just do as she pleased. She must come to the children's home, and immediately. He went up to her and took hold of her arm, but Pippi freed herself quickly, touched him lightly, and said, "Tag!" Before he could wink an eye, she'd climbed on the porch railing and from there onto the balcony above the porch. The policemen couldn't quite see themselves getting up the same way, and so they rushed into the house and up the stairs. But by the time they reached the balcony, Pippi was halfway up the roof. She climbed up the shingles as if she were a little monkey herself. In a moment, she was up on the ridgepole, and from there jumped easily to the chimney. Down on the balcony stood the two policemen, scratching their heads, and on the lawn stood Tommy and Annika, staring at Pippi. "Isn't it fun to play tag?" cried Pippi. "And you were so nice to come over. It certainly is my lucky day, too." After the policemen had stood there a while, wondering what to do, they went and got a ladder, leaned it against one of the gables of the house, and climbed up, first one policeman and then the other, to get Pippi down. They looked a little scared when they climbed out onto the ridgepole, and carefully balancing themselves, went step by step toward Pippi. "Don't be scared," cried Pippi. "There's nothing to be afraid of. It's just fun." When the policemen were a few steps away from Pippi, down she jumped from the chimney, and screeching and laughing, ran along the ridgepole to the opposite gable. A few feet from the house stood a tree. Now, ridgepole. I don't exactly know what a ridgepole is. I'm assuming it's a pole on the edge of the house. Maybe that runs along the edge of the house like this. So maybe she's running along the ridgepole. And I think a gable is like a column or some sort of like structure on the outside of the house. I only know that word from another book called Anne of Green Gables, which I don't even know what that means. Anyway, we'll have some pictures here of ridgepoles and gables. A few feet from the house stood a tree. "Now I'm going to dive," she cried, and jumped right down into the green crown of a tree, caught hold of a branch, swung back and forth a while, and then let herself fall to the ground. Quick as a wink, she dashed around to the other side of the house and took away the ladder. The policemen had looked a little foolish when Pippi jumped, but they looked even more so when they had balanced themselves backward along the ridgepole and were about to climb down the ladder. At first they were very angry at Pippi, who stood on the ground looking up at them, and they told her in no uncertain terms to get the ladder and be quick about it, or she would soon get something she wasn't looking for. "Why are you so cross at me?" asked Pippi reproachfully. "We're just playing tag, aren't we?" The policeman thought a while. And at last one of them said, "Oh, come on, won't you be a good girl and put the ladder back so we can get down?" "Of course I will," said Pippi, and put the ladder back instantly. "And when you get down, we can all drink coffee and have a happy time." But the policemen were certainly tricky, because the minute they were down on the ground again, they pounced on Pippi and cried, "Now you'll get it, you little brat." "Oh, I'm sorry I haven't time to play any longer," said Pippi, "but it was fun." Then she took hold of the policemen by their belts and carried them down the garden path, out of the gate and onto the street. Then she set them down, and it was quite some time before they were ready to get up again. Pippi is very strong. "Wait a minute," she cried, and ran into the kitchen and came back with 2 cookie hearts. "Would you like a taste?" she asked. "It doesn't matter that they are a little burned, does it?" Then she went back to Tommy and Annika, who stood there wide-eyed and couldn't get over what they had seen. And the policeman hurried back to town and told all the ladies and gentlemen that Pippi wasn't quite fit for a children's home. They didn't tell that they had been up on the roof. And the ladies and gentlemen decided that it would be best after all to let Pippi remain in Villa Villekulla. And if she wanted to go to school, she could make the arrangements herself. But Pippi and Tommy and Annika had a very pleasant afternoon. They went back to their interrupted coffee party. Pippi stuffed herself with 14 cookies! Uncle Scotty is jealous because he wants 14 cookies right now. Could dunk them in. 14 cookies. And then she said, "They weren't what I mean by real policemen. No sirree. Although too much talk about children's homes and pluffification in Lisbon." Afterward, she lifted the horse down onto the ground, and they rode on him, all 3. At first, Annika was afraid and didn't want to, but then she saw what fun Tommy and Pippi were having, and she let Pippi lift her up on the horse's back. The horse trotted round and round the garden, and Tommy sang, "Here come the Swedes with a clang and a bang. Here come the Swedes with a clang and a bang. Here come the Swedes with a clang and a bang." When Tommy and Annika had gone to bed that night, Tommy said, "Annika, don't you think it's good that Pippi moved here?" "Oh, yes," said Annika. "I don't remember what we used to play before she came. Do you?" "Oh, sure, we played croquet and things like that," said Annika. "But it's lots more fun with Pippi around, I think, and with horses and things." And we'll find out what happens next with Pippi and Tommy and Annika and this little town and the horse and Mr. Nose and the monkey. Next time on Storytime with Uncle Scotty. I have been your host, Uncle Scotty. We have our own mugs. Thank you for watching live from the Storytimemobile. Thank you for checking us out, liking, sharing, subscribing, all these wonderful things. It means the world. And I will see you next time. Bye.